So I want to talk about the situation that happens in First Samuel chapter 18. This is really a turning point in this whole saga that takes place between King Saul and David. And in this case, it's when David is coming back from a battle, and these women come out and they sing the song. And in the song, they say this, they say, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s. And we have an account there that says Saul was angry, and he basically says, well, this is what he says. This is verse 8 of First Samuel 18. They have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed only thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? Very interesting, because David was actually anointed to be the king of Israel by Samuel. And you can look at this and say, okay, this is the turning point, but it really isn't the turning point. The turning point in all of this came when Saul refused to listen to God and do what he said. Okay? We see that early on, when he was told very specific instructions and he did not carry them out. And there's a time when Samuel comes to him and says, hey, God has removed you from being the king of Israel. Now, here's the interesting thing. Saul kept being the king of Israel. And we see through the life of Saul a man that was worried about the popular opinion of himself. Even here, this bothers him. The popular opinion about what these women were singing bothered him. He was worried about maintaining the throne because he wanted that prestige or whatever, but he was not worried about God's opinion of him and the fact that God had told him he didn't want him as king anymore. Now I'm going to make this easy. I'm going to say some very, very specific and direct things about this. If God is not calling you to something, if he has not called you, okay, when you know that God has not called you, don't keep doing it. Like in this case, Saul was told it's over, but he kept doing it. And eventually it becomes clear to Saul, like even here, that God had anointed David to be king. He had called David to be king, and then Saul began to go after David. Rather than just face up to it and say, I messed up, and that's what God said, and I accept it. He could have, the whole thing would be completely different. It didn't go that way. And as a matter of fact, basically what we see through the book of First Samuel is a man in his rebellion against God, in his way of just completely rejecting God's word and doing what he wanted anyways. We see a man basically lose his mind. Slowly but surely, he becomes crazy. And we see on the other side of that, we see David draw closer and closer and closer to the Lord, grow, mature. As Saul is getting darker and darker and darker, David is growing and growing and growing in his faith and in his trust of God. And God is preparing him and equipping him. I think I look at this, I look at it and I say, you know what? This is a simple thing for us. First of all, think about the outcome of your decisions and understand that if you are choosing rebellion, you're choosing the wrong thing. Look, this is such a big deal, and people often think, well, it's not going to be not that much is going to come out of it. Wrong. That's wrong. When you choose rebellion, Samuel told Saul, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. When God is convicting you and speaking to you and addressing the issues in your life, that need to change and you ignore that, that's trouble. David chose, look, he made a ton of mistakes, but he continued to return to the Lord even after major messes, after major sin. Saul also made his mistakes, but he continued on without returning to the Lord, without saying, okay, then let it go. If the Lord doesn't want me to have it, I let it go. Even Moses made mistakes. He made big mistakes too. He misrepresented the Lord. But there was a time when God was so upset with the nation of Israel, he said basically, Moses, I'm going to wipe them out. I'm going to make a great nation from you and your descendants. And Moses said, no. Lord, what would your enemies say? What would they say? God couldn't do it. God couldn't get them through the wilderness. There was a time when Moses, advocated for these people. And instead of just following his own path, right, and saying, oh, yeah, that sounds good. But no. But, even in a time when you see like somebody like in this case where David is obviously being blessed by God, God is using him powerfully, raising him up, we should not be scared of that thing. We should not fight against it. We should actually be so thankful. And I've seen this in my years in ministry, even when people got suspicious that God was calling somebody to something great and started to become almost like passive aggressive, become, I don't know. I don't know why these things happen. But listen, this is for you. It's not about how people treat you. It's about how you respond in your walk with the Lord. The enemy messes with people's minds. He gets in their head. People attack others for no reason. They go after them verbally or whatever. Look, this all comes down to, are you going to continue to trust God and follow what he's leading you to do and follow the call in your life? Are you going to continue on, or are you going to ignore it? Or are you going to rebel against it? And this is for us. We need to remember to always go back to the Lord, to draw near. When you're attacked, when the enemy is after you, whatever it is, it's time to draw near to God. So I hope that ministers to you today. Happy Friday, of course. Please take the time today to watch the roundup. Also, that'll be on James Cadiz's YouTube page, or James Cadiz or Rumble page. Wow, I'm out of it. Also, leave me a comment, like and subscribe, all of those things. God bless you. I'm so glad that you watched this, and I will see you on Monday.